Life Rich Movement podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We are going to have a really fun conversation. You guys, you are in for a treat. I bet you have never met a lawyer that is basically only thinking of the law in a good, positive, spiritual manner. She understands that people work businesses that are aligned with their true purpose and the way in which they want to live their life filled with meaning and service, and that's quite rare. So today we are very blessed to have the lawyer for the holistic healers and spiritual entrepreneurs, many of which I know are listening right now. And I just think it's really special that you've kind of taken this focus and turn for the legal industry. It is quite a unique one, which I can't wait to get all into. But thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for all the creative reels and work that you put out. You've educated me so much on just copyright and all the little things you don't know to think about until you either are getting in trouble for them or you learn a little too late and it's an expensive mistake. So thank you also for your content. That's how we originally became friends. And guys, you're in for a treat. All the stalking that will happen after this episode. You guys are set for joy for the day and so much info coming your way.
Yes, I hope everyone likes celestial themes and Bravo as well.
It's so enjoyable. And honestly, well, I'll start with this. I have been following you for, I think, 2 years now. And I originally came across your post when I was figuring out how to get this podcast going. And I was just really confused on what I needed to do. And also still haven't done any of it, so I need to jump on that. But I just couldn't wrap my head around it because the information that was available was just so heavy in jargon. It made no sense. And you really made it very clear for me. And I was hooked from the gate. But then you started just being yourself as well. And you allowed your spirituality to shine through. And you love crystals. Like, there's just so much about you that's so unique. And it made me realize that we're in a really cool time right now in life where we get to be blessed with lawyers being allowed to be multifaceted and not just have to be the buttoned up lawyer. I'm a lawyer. And that's like your whole entire personality in life. Like, we're in a time where you can be the skilled individual we go to when we're nervous or scared about something, and you can help us. And then simultaneously to that, you can help us find our crystal of choice and, maybe give us like a mantra that we can say when we're about to do something for a big deal. Like, I love that dichotomy that we're all able to have right now with so many different professionals, but it's just, you're so unique and it's so fun. I love that we're here right now. It's a good time to be alive.
I was just talking about this a couple of weeks ago, and I forget the context. I was emailing about it, but basically I started my practice almost 9 years ago. And when I started, I had my headshots taken, and you can see me in my little suit jacket that I probably haven't worn since. But I thought, okay, I better get some headshots in a suit because otherwise how will people take me seriously? And it really wasn't until probably right around 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. No, 2 years ago, when I started tiptoeing into my own and kind of just washing away the rest and just doing what felt right and natural,
I remember that change. I saw it on Instagram, and when it was happening, it's so interesting, and I'm so glad you brought this up because this is going to be a full circle moment for me, and also I hope a testament to you to how inspirational you are in being your authentic self, especially in the professional regard. So I remember distinctly I had been following you before, and you were just copyright law. Like, everything was just very litigious, giving information. You were breaking down the privacy policies, which I love, and we're going to get into because you're so amazing at that. Thank you, by the way, for all of that. But I do remember there was a moment where I could see visibly that you yourself were no longer jiving with what you were doing. And you only stayed there for a month or two. And I could tell during that time you were plotting. And you started dropping little seeds here and there, showing more personal things on like your legal page. And then it started with the crystals. And I was like, oh, okay, okay, okay. And then you started the Creative Soul Sisterhood, and you needed to get more aligned with people that were more like in the creative mix. All the while, I was like, where's this going to go? Is she going to leave law behind? And is she going to take this new vision forward of like being a coach and helping people with their businesses that want to be a healer? And like, I could see you were just navigating the path. And then you landed in this place to where I think you realized, and I don't mean to speak for you, I'm totally assuming here because I stalked you. I was just
This
like,
is
I
so
love this
interesting. No,
journey
I
for
want to
her.
hear what you observed.
I think that once you got into the space of creating that community, you still realized that there was legal help needed and that these businesses were important and they needed someone to help them so they could keep doing the good work. Like you, it was pouring out of your soul into your content in a way that like at my in my life at the same time, I had just left Philadelphia, left a very stable life, and my husband and I left to live on savings with my mother while I built up my course business that I thought was going to like take off. It didn't. I'm in a very different place now. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing, but at that time, I had a little birdie in my ear while I was watching you that said, if there was ever a time for you to switch from just being a publicist and a business strategist, now's the time. What do you want to do? And I kept forcing it and forcing it and forcing it. And then a year went by and I was like, let me just start the podcast. So at least I have something fun that feels good for me and then I can focus still on selling the course. And then the podcast just took over and I was like, this is what I wanted to do the whole time. Shame on you. Don't let it happen again. You lost a year because of fear. And I was watching you and I saw what happens when you lean in. You leaned in. Am I correct? Did the universe download this for me in such a proper manner? Because I could see every step of it and it was beautiful and so inspiring.
This is so wild because I probably 6 months ago now had my first like actual intensive astrology reading. And in my chart, if you're familiar with Chiron and like the wounded healer, and we all have a wound that we're on this earth to heal, overcome. There are probably better words, but that's basically the gist of it. And my wound is using my voice and stepping into authenticity. And I was told the more that I do that, it's not that I'm teaching others, here's how to use your voice and step into your authenticity. The more that I do that as a practice for myself, the more it will help others do the same.
That's crazy.
And it wasn't like at the time that I started doing it, I didn't know that. It was just kind of okay, I started working with a business coach at that time. And she started introducing me into, instead of starting the day like, all right, I got to get things done, like, boom, let's go, let's hustle. Like taking some time to step into a better energy. And it was better for my creativity. It was better for my income. It was better for my family. It was better, obviously, of course. And then started getting into crystals and then started getting into human design. And then like all of these things were just so incredible that it was at a day retreat at her house where we were all talking about, it was in a group coaching program and we were talking about how we knew each other. And there was, I'm going off topic a little bit, but there was this group that we were all a part of in Detroit. I lived in Detroit for a couple of years. That was a networking group, but it was also very much a community. Like that was for women in business and we all knew each other. We met each month on a different topic. And I was like, I really wish there was something like that in Nashville. And they were like, well, you could start something like that. And I was like, do I really want to do that? But I'm a manifesting generator and I'm multi-passionate. And it's like, well, I can do it. And if I don't like it, then I'll just do something else. So I did. And it was in doing that in November of 2022, in doing that and starting that community that I started to learn, someone came who is a family constellations practitioner and talks about generational trauma. She's like, it's so nice to come to a space where I'm not looking at the blank stare from a mortgage broker and explaining what it is that I do and feeling like I have to prove myself, explain, to someone who just doesn't get it and thinks you're like, what is this? Doesn't take you seriously as a business person. And so that's the space I wanted it to be, a safe space for people who, I don't want to say non-traditional, but for people who are creative souls, who are in business, but who are looking for that community of other expanders and conscious minds.
It's beautiful. It really is. And I think also where, for me, it was you were very professional from the minute I first started following you. So I had no doubt that you had the chops to like make it in the world that you were in. I knew very much it wasn't aligned with you. So when you did move into this space, and then I recognized like, aha, she just, she very much values emotional equity, which is what a lot of the old timers disrupt and dismiss. And I think moving forward, there's going to be so in all sectors, especially with AI creeping in our our midst. The only thing we truly have that is ours and ours alone is, I think, emotional equity and what we put into the business that makes it unique and different. And I never really thought about it too much that way. You certainly sent me on that understanding, and then everyone that I interview, something happens to them in their life, something isn't aligned, or something terrible happens and they realize like the purpose of their life, and then they just move forward. And it's almost always something that's helping other people. But without that emotional quotient, it would be just another bucket in a sea of buckets floating out in the wild open ocean where like we're all just scrambling to just not drown because business is hard.
Yeah.
So it's so beautiful that you've kind of led the charge in putting what matters first in business, which can seem very scary because we've been taught to think it isn't stable. But in reality, most businesses fail because the person wasn't personally aligned or had done no spiritual growth work to really make sure they could handle the full weight of what a successful business is, let alone an unsuccessful business. Where does that take you in terms of who you were working with before to who you're working with now? Like, what are the big changes you're seeing in, I would imagine it's a totally different experience.
It's a totally different experience, and I've zigzagged in these last 8.5, 9 years, because when I first started, it was like, anybody that needs me, here I am. Like, I need clients, I need work. I did have some boundaries. I knew I was moving away from the music industry. I didn't want to be in the music industry any longer. And so kind of going through, okay, at the time the fashion scene in Nashville was kind of budding, and so I thought, oh, I'm going to be the Nashville fashion lawyer. And then kind of dipped out of that, and then started really around 2018. I was pregnant with my oldest, and I was like, I don't want to be geographically tied to somewhere. And so I'm going to start working with bloggers and online businesses. I didn't really use the word coaches at the time. It was more like bloggers and podcasters. But didn't feel like, and I feel like this is important to say, but like the energetic exchange was not there. I found a lot of scarcity there, and a lot of like, what's the minimum I have to do type of thing that made me feel like, okay, I have a lot of work to do, but it's not something that people want to pay for or invest in. So then, pivoted from there to really where I am now, which is, experts, spiritual entrepreneurs, someone who is so dialed into what their talent is and is helping people on various levels and various levels of support to learn more about whatever it is they do, whether it's spiritual coaching, whether it's making sourdough, whether it's whatever it is. I say women, but really just people who are experts in their field, who are educating and helping in their arena.
Yeah, I love it. And it's such a special mission. And I wonder if when you felt the niche kind of hit you, where did you feel relief in knowing that, like, leaning into not knowing what was next really was like, this was the gift that came from it? Like, did you feel the transition and then finally feeling that place of like, whew, okay, this was it. This was what I was like working towards and like wasn't sure of this whole time.
Yeah, I definitely feel like this was it. And I didn't really have any fear around,
Okay.
niching down into this. My husband, bless him, told me after the fact, like, I was really nervous when you said you were going to do this, but look, it's like paid off incredibly because you were right. And so, I appreciate him for supporting me in that way
Yeah.
and voicing it, kind of after the fact. But it's like, it can be a scary thing, I think, for people to niche down, definitely, because it's always that fear of what if this isn't the right move. But I wasn't afraid at the time that I kind of started pivoting in that direction. And it feels like, a swimming pool at the perfect temperature.
Oh, I love that. When you were kind of in those last moments of your former law career, was there ever, what was there like a catalyst moment that you can remember where you were like, okay, that's it. Like change is happening. I don't know what the change is, but starting today, like we're making the leap. We're taking a change because there had to be something that kicked it off because you did truly just like it was a 180. You could feel it as a
Yeah.
stranger. So I wonder what it was like for you in that like emotionally in that moment.
I remember setting an intention at the beginning of whatever year it was that I wanted to work with more healers, in whatever capacity, body workers, energy healers, whatever, chiropractors. And I released a program. So from the inception, the name of my law practice was Spear IP. Spear is my maiden name. And so it was like, Spear, like, yeah, aggressive. It really was just my maiden name, but also just kind of like sounds like a strong law firm. But I released a program called The Legal Apothecary, just kind of like testing the waters of this name. And like I said, it was a program within my law firm. And the program evolved in various incarnations. But the common thread was people were like, gosh, that's a really good name. I was like, I know it is a really good name. And so last year I made the decision to just go full all in on The Legal Apothecary because it was attracting it's the power of a name. It was attracting all of the right folks and all of the people who just connected with that name.
It very much evokes like what ails you. Like you're just gonna legally, have what we need to fix what ails us. So it's very comforting and calming. And honestly, your whole demeanor is that anyway. It's a very like om tone of like comfort where you're like, "Whew, okay, all right." Like accountants and lawyers can make you feel really safe sometimes, and it's
Yes.
nice
Or
to have
not.
that energy. Or
Yeah.
not, definitely or not. But I love that you are a lawyer and you do bring that energy to the space. I think that it's absolutely because you're so multifaceted, and we did talk about your manifesting generator existence.
Yes.
So I would love for you to get into that a little bit. Like let's woo woo it up for those who may not have any idea what that is, but it absolutely explains your musical career, your former law career, now where you're at. And I love your podcast. Your podcast is amazing. We'll link it in the show notes. I love everything you do, and you do it so well. So I would just love to hear about your personality and kind of how you make it all happen because you do also have two children and a husband.
Yes. Thank you.
It's a lot.
Thank you for that. We were saying kind of before we hit record, it's finding out I was a manifesting generator was just such a permission slip to like, okay, I'm not meant to just do one thing for the rest of my life and just focus on that thing. Because even, while we were living in Detroit and in like the infancy of motherhood, I was like, I just feel like there's something other than my law practice or in addition to my law practice that I'm meant to do or be a part of in some way. And like, I'm happy with how it's growing, but like there's something else. And I didn't know what that something else was, but it was before I knew my human design, I was feeling that way. And for people who are unfamiliar with human design or manifesting generator, there are different energy types within human design, and manifesting generators have a little bit manifestor and a little bit generator. And basically you are multi-passionate, and you aren't meant to do just one thing the rest of your life. That really explains it. And so once I found that out, it was like, oh, it's okay that I have a law practice and a community and all of these different, I mean, I did calligraphy at one point, just like dabbling in things that interest me. And it's like, oh, had someone explain it to me, like, you should do things that make you feel like human champagne. And if something doesn't make you feel like human, yeah, right? Isn't that that's just the best visual? If you're doing something that doesn't make you feel like human champagne, you're not in alignment. So it was like, oh wow, that feels
Such a good
right.
explanation for flow. And I think that's what was very visible. I could see you were not totally enjoying what you were doing, and your flow came into play. It was very apparent when it first came. It was like a glimpse of who you actually were. And then slowly but surely, you just made that all of your content. And then you also looked way more comfortable coming onto camera. And it seemed like you were doing it because you wanted to and not because you had to.
Yeah.
And it also really, I think, if I lived in Nashville, I would be a part of all of your communities, all of your events. You just are like providing so much for a community that doesn't always get, the fair receiving that they should when they do different networking events, as you stated your friend had kind of explained. And I've experienced the same thing. I'm a little more fortunate because I live in a tourist area, and we kind of have to evolve with the tourists that are coming from a city, and they are ahead of a lot. So I'm fortunate for that, but there is still a lot of stigma tied to non-traditional businesses. And I love so much that you've created not only a safe space where they can feel seen and valued, or at least put on the pedestal that they deserve, because they're running a business while also trying to keep it above board morally and spiritually, which can be very difficult if you want to be successful in the what has become the traditional sense of business, I'd say, these days.
Yeah.
Where did you kind of recall the first moment of you needing to, I guess, switch the way in which you discussed law because these new clients valued what you were giving? Was there a moment where you felt like you had to explain less of why it was needed and like kind of just give more of an idea of what is out there that a business should have? Because it did feel like your content, the education standpoint, did seem to change a bit to where it was almost like you knew it was being well received.
That's a great question. I for a while I was relying heavily on YouTube, and my YouTube channel, at least at first, was very like informative and not dry, because I still am me when I'm
No,
talking
you were
on
so
camera.
good on it. Yeah.
But it just had a different flavor than
Yeah.
reels and TikToks and whatever, when you're in that short form and you have to keep people entertained, for lack of a better word. It's like it's just different. It's just a little bit different. And so now my YouTube, it does kind of incorporate some of that flavor, because I've just gotten used to it, but kind of pivoting and saying, okay, like I can't just take a snippet from a YouTube video and like call that content. There's a way to like explain these things and tie in like the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City or whatever to make the point. It was more fun for me to make, and I think that's part of it too. It being more fun.
Yeah. So, well, I want to talk a little bit about your community and absolutely come back to your legal offerings in a bit. But for your community that you've created, the Creative Soul Sisterhood, what did it feel like once you were in front of that audience and you were kind of hearing what they were telling you? Because I know it had to be a very validating moment after years of not really feeling like you were enjoying your work output. Like what was that like, that moment, like that first event and that first time?
The first event was wild because I think we had between 30 and 40 women there. And I was like, I hope 10 people show up, you know? And just like literally boots on the ground, putting flyers in cafes, doing all the social media stuff, like telling, and it was amazing how people who I had lost touch with for 5 years or so, whatever, some of them came, and it was like, oh, like you're in this space too, like you're into the woo woo, like aligned, business stuff. And it was surprising to learn, first of all, that people I knew that I had no idea were like in this kind of space, in this world. And also that so many people were attracted to this idea of, okay, we're going to tend to our businesses in a way that, or tend to our minds and bodies in a way that also impacts us as business owners. And that means tying in some spiritual elements. It means talking about, public relations in a different way, and learning about the cycles of the moon, and incorporating all of this stuff into our business. And, it was so fun. It's like throwing a brunch for your friends, I say, because, I go and get some flowers and whatever crystals to put out that fit the theme for the day. And it was a wild feeling, that first meeting. And then again, these last couple of meetings we've sold out just because, we got to capacity, and it's like, wow, it's gotten to the point where it's easy now to just put it out there into the world, and the people will come.
I love it. I want everyone to take a second and I'm going to recount what we've discussed so far, because there's a theme here and you've executed it really beautifully each time. Fear can be your friend. And fear is always the greatest lesson, no matter the degree or who or what it applies to. And oftentimes, you're going to have one of two routes. I let fear win for a year, and I am paying for it. Only in the fact that I am cognizant of the moment where I decided to let fear win. It was a choice. And I think you demonstrate really beautifully in multiple ways now that trying new things can be hard and scary, but it is very worthwhile. And if you approach it like something to do instead of something that's happening to you, you can get through it a little easier. And it's something that I think people need to know as an option, because it's absolutely a mindset shift. And I think it kind of ties into a mantra that I myself needed to hear in a meditation last week, and I've been saying it ever since, because it really got me. I was like, oh my God, what? I can get what I want while it being an enjoyable task. Work doesn't always have to be hard. It doesn't always have to be excruciating. It doesn't always have to be suffering or like taking you to the end of your wits. It can be enjoyable. And I think that Maria is a really beautiful example of hard things being enjoyable. So I want to point that out for everyone, because it is something that after 15 years of business, I needed to hear that in a meditation last week on some random Tibetan YouTube page. And it changed me. And I realized, like, holy fook, I have literally been thinking that everything has to be hard. So I'm making it hard on my own.
Will you
when
say
it
it
doesn't
again?
have to be.
The
It's,
mantra.
oh, I can get what I want without it being like a difficult task, is like the sentiment. Like, you can have what you want without it being awful. Things can come to you easily. Work can be easy. You can get what you want through easy work. And I've just been like saying it in different ways. And I find myself now throughout the day, I'm like, you're making this too complicated. Don't overthink this. Send it. Do this, do that. And it was like me being able to be like, light bulb, are you making this hard? Why are you doing this? Don't you want to go sit down and relax? Like, finish it up and let's go. So for me, it's been
Yes.
very like, ooh, 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 ooh. I do this a bit. I do this quite a bit. So I want to share the fact that you seem to, I guess, no, unknowingly or knowingly, be executing these fear points because you are looking at them as an opportunity that is going to be enjoyable, and you have made it so.
Thank you. I at the beginning of this year, I did a mastermind with two other ladies. We were talking about kind of planning for the year, and I had this, call it a light bulb, whatever, intuitive hit, to leave my Instagram account and start a completely fresh Instagram account and really lean into. I had already started incorporating some of my personality into the old account, but really lean into the intuitive and spiritual community and businesses. And that was a little bit scary because it's like, all right, let's start from zero. I think I have 200 and something now, but it's like, let's start from zero and build an account from zero. Because my old account, I mean, this is like a little bit technical algorithm stuff, but it's like, it had pivoted from this to this to this to this to this. And so like, I don't know if people were finding me because of all of these changes that I had made. So I was like, all right, 2024, we're just going to start fresh. And it's been really wonderful learning about the, and the suggested whatever, like finding new people in this same space.
It is definitely a brave choice to make, but I remember when you did it, and at the time, I think we're also always at the mercy of tech
Yes.
companies, and we are at their beck and call, and you know that better than anyone because you are a policy master. I want to highlight that part of what you offer willingly out of the joy of your soul. Guys, you're going to go to our Instagram page afterwards, and I just want you to peruse around because Maria is so gracious to not only read through the different changes in policy terms for all companies that you work with, Zoom, Google, Instagram, TikTok, but she then explains it in a way that we can all digest to make our own decisions. I think it's important for everyone to remember that these tech companies don't owe you shit, and you must read the fine print because your business and your materials and your identity could very much rely on it when you willingly gave it away. So could you please explain how you started this series and kind of what you've surmised recently and things that maybe people aren't aware of that they should be aware of with some of their favorite apps and programs?
Yes. So this started as a YouTube series, Terms of Use You Didn't Read. And my first or second go was with Canva. Love Canva. I use it probably every single day. And to this day, it is how I got a majority of my YouTube followers. And there were so many questions. And by the way, these update every year, if not, more. So it's like, all right, this one's actually out of date, like turning comments off now, making a new one. So went with Canva and then TikTok, which is still a popular one. TikTok tracks your keystrokes. So know that when you're on your phone and sending a sensitive email or something. So there's TikTok, there's Canva, there's ChatGPT, and I have a list because I'm hoping to do another go at this series. But it's like, know what they can do with your information. We're all creators, and sometimes it's fine, and sometimes it's like, wait. If I use this feature, like they can use my voice to build their AI component. Wait. I don't know maybe you're comfortable with that. Maybe you don't care. Maybe you're not so comfortable with that. And so just knowing and being aware so that you can make an informed decision I'm a big fan of that.
It's really crazy what they try to get away with. And every time you post something like that, I get the email in the morning from the company. I wake up to it. And I'm like, nope, Maria's got me later. I don't even look through it anymore. I'm like, no, she'll cover it way better than I could. This will take me 45 minutes. I need these 45 minutes.
Oh my
and then
gosh,
lo
so
and behold, an hour later, I'm like, oh, there it is. Okay, here. Let's read through this. Let's watch this. Let's read this. I send it to everybody that I know that needs to know or that cares. A lot of people don't care, but some do. And those that do are going to be obsessed with you when they find you because it's important. I love so much how you take the law and make it very digestible. Did you put any effort into that, or are you just naturally a teacher? Have you always been someone that could kind of relate information in a way that people understand? It feels like a gift.
Thank you. I mean, part of it is like the musical theater stuff that I used to do as a college student. And so being fairly comfortable like in front of a microphone, but also, I mean, if you look back at my very first YouTube video, I didn't even know about editing. I thought I had to do everything in one take. So I'm looking at the camera like this, just like trying to remember what to say. And so it's actually been helpful to be able to look back and rewatch and be like, oh, that was a little, this or that, or next time I'm going to try that. So it's definitely been a little bit of an evolution as to, okay, who am I talking to here? I'm not talking to other lawyers. It doesn't matter, I don't have to use the exact right legal words to talk about something. I can explain it in a way that my client cares about.
It's very smart that you started thinking about the customer, because I think this doesn't apply to all lawyers, okay? So guys, I'm not coming for you. If it feels like it's not you, it's not you, okay? But I do think there are some professions that are still very ego-based and still somewhat male driven that I think allow for a lot of pompous vibes to come. It also kind of feels in a way like they don't want anyone to learn how to read, because then they like won't need them, or like it's just very much like gatekeepery vibes. And you have literally never, not once, ever been that way. I've asked you 2 questions twice and you were like, oh my God, bop, bop, bop. And I was like, oh, okay, it didn't make sense the way they said this. Like, you're just so carefree with your knowledge and your information. And I would imagine all of that back and forth that people are comfortable having with you, because you have willingly given this all away, is what led to your newest legal product that you have here, which I am so amped to discuss, which is your membership. Can you tell us all about your membership? And congratulations, because it's amazing and it's such a smart idea, and you should trademark it because people are going to want to copy this.
Oh my
time.
gosh.
Such a smart idea.
So it's not, I don't think of it really as a membership. It's just a level of support that came to me through observing other people in other industries, and also just wanting to be able to be a resource to my clients to prevent, what am I trying to say? To prevent bigger things from snowballing. It's like, okay. And also hearing from people who are like, all right, I have a lawyer, and every time I talk to her, I get a bill for like 15 minutes or 10 minutes. And it's this dichotomy of, again, energetic exchange. And it's like, when I ask questions of people, I don't expect to just get everything for free. But it's also this expectation of, okay, I'm a business owner, so I also just would love to know like what the investment is before we go deep into this thing. Mm-hmm. And so voice note support was born, and it's something where I've also found that if people have a question, like they want to know soon. And so it allows you to, and on your own time, rather than, all right, I'm going to go to this calendar and I'm going to schedule, oh, she doesn't have anything tomorrow or the next, and my day is full the next day, so we're going to schedule on the next day. You pull up Voxer, and whatever question you would normally ask on the phone, you pop in a voice note, and I will, if I happen to be on Voxer right then I'll just Vox you right back. But if I need 5 minutes to kind of think about an efficient answer, then getting back to you, I say either same day or next business day, fairly quickly with an answer so that we can talk through. And I'll give an example if that helps. I have a client on voice note support, and she engaged a contractor for a very specific marketing role, and it wasn't working out. It was just not a fit. And so she was like, can I even terminate this contract? I don't know, I want to, but can I? And I said, let's look at the termination section of the contract that you signed. So we looked at it. I was like, okay, you actually can, but here are the things that you have to follow. And she wrote up a little message, and I kind of gave my input on some language that I prefer. And she sent it off, and she terminated the contract. And so it was she was like, it gave her some ease. It allowed me to be there to prevent any missteps in that process. I've also had clients ask, okay, I've got this new podcast or this new thing going. Like, at what point do I need to register or think about registering a trademark? It's like, well, if it's brand new, we kind of talk through it. And having the ability to talk through things before getting into a big project has just been a pleasure.
It's a really cool concept that I feel like there have been 3 times I've Googled things. The answers, it's like the Wild West of what's going to pull up, okay? You have no idea. Can you trust the source, etc.
Yeah.
Then I thought, okay, Chat GPT is going to be more official because it can comb from the entire internet. It has no preferences. There's no ads pulling what's what, or does it? I don't know, but you know. And then, you get an answer and it's like, bro, all you did was re-vomit the question back to me and you didn't give me an answer and you told me that you can't assist me with this and I need help. So I feel like you are only providing people what they want. And I think it's really beautiful too as a gateway to get a bit of legal advice under your belly and then recognize the real value of having a retainer with someone like you, or, okay, well, I'm ready to do this, this, and this. Could you be the one to do that for me? So I love it in all regards. They get help immediately. And then, it's building this rapport of safety and support that is going to make the customer feel even more inclined to just keep going further down the legal checkpoints to make sure they're covering all their bases. I think it's beautiful and so smart. And like I get voice notes 5-6 times a week. How should I pitch our Easter egg hunt? How do I get the paper to cover it? Or, we're looking for someone to give us some eco packaging, but we need for the ink to be a specific ink that can be a hologram print. Like, I get questions all week long, and I love helping people. So I'm like, this is what you do. But what you're doing, it's like, God, for anyone offering a service in that regard, it's so smart because you are going to help them. And if you're a helper to begin with, sometimes I'll be like, you know what, I can't. I'm busy today. I can't do it. And then I'll find myself like, forget it. I'll do it while I'm walking. It's like you want to help, but it's hard. So I love the format and the boundaries that you've put in place to kind of set around this being through Voxer and the timeline within which you get back. But it just feels so refreshing and genius. And I think you're absolutely setting a trend for a lot of service providers for sure.
Thank you. I hope that people steal it. You can steal it. It's just it's a great, I mean, I keep saying aligned, but it is. It feels good because I know I'm providing some value to people who maybe I had another client who's like, I want to be able to ask you questions, but I don't want you to think that I'm asking for advice for free, but also like want to know what to expect, what to expect to invest in this. And so it's like, it solves all of those
And I even
problems.
see this being,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I also see it being something really cool that your own customers, depending on what service they're providing, could want to do as well. Like if I had access to a Reiki person or someone that's helping me with my mindset or spiritual development, or maybe you're a business coach, I would have five of you all over the place. It's like, okay, what's my team? Okay, I get to ask you all the questions all day long. It's like your own personal Google in a way, and they understand who you are, so they're able to apply a very customized answer to what you need. It's just, I think it's so genius. I'm obsessed with it, and I know this is going to be huge for you, like huge.
Thank
Absolutely. Do you think that we all need a disclaimer on our work? Creators, I think, are a little confused as to when to legitimize what they're doing or when it's just their opinion. There's kind of a gray area I see for healers. So tell me if I'm wrong, but is there a moment when we know we must include a disclaimer?
That's a really great question. And I talk about disclaimers as like the wet floor sign for your business. And sometimes it's like, we can see that the floor is wet, but you know that if you don't have the wet floor sign, like someone's going to sue the grocery store, So even though it's like so obvious.
So good. Got me. It's so good.
that your website is full of information and it might not be a detailed solution for somebody, it's still smart to put a disclaimer on your website saying the information on this website is educational and not intended as professional advice. Or on a testimonial section, results not guaranteed. And that's a really simple, really short disclaimer that everyone can kind of remember, or as a takeaway, like, results not guaranteed. Of course they're not. We see that the floor is wet. We know we are critical thinkers. We know results aren't guaranteed. But you know that if you don't say it, somebody somewhere someday, knock on wood, might be like, I thought that I was going to get, whatever, 100,000 followers after working with you. So I don't think there's a blanket rule for like you always need a disclaimer when blah. Testimonials might be a good rule, but for educational content, technically, should you have a disclaimer wherever you are providing educational information that could impact someone's health or business? Yes. Do I follow that rule myself? No, we are content machines. We're like kicking content out all of the time. So it's really hard to do that. But on the website, yes, I do. And I actually have, if I can say this, I have a free resource that you can access. I'll drop a link for you, but it's a guide for websites for coaches, healers, and experts. And it has kind of copy and pastable disclaimers that you can use depending on how your business is structured.
Bless you. Thank you for that. Well, guys, check the show notes. There's going to be a lot of goodies in the show notes. You're all going to be blown away. And I think it's going to be the most exciting time that you've spent reading anything legal these days because you make it really enjoyable. And I mean that. It's a talent and one that I'm not surprised you have. You're so creative, from your musical theater background to just all the ways in which you've kind of evolved as Maria, which I find to be really beautiful. I just love so much that when they get you as their lawyer, they're getting all of you. And there's a lot of really beautiful experience in there that I think is just what makes what you're doing so successful and so special. And I just love it. Oh, I don't want to cut out of here before we talk about the Soul Word Summit that you have in Nashville. Tell us all about that.
Yes. So we haven't done a full blown detailed schedule yet.
Whatever you can share. Yeah.
But I will share. So Soul Word Summit is something that my friend Katie and I have spearheaded, and it is going to be a conference in Nashville in September that is all about incorporating intuitive practices with business acumen. And so it came from, as a result of doing these Creative Soul Sisterhood meetings, I was like, I was looking for myself for like opportunities to speak, looking for conferences that kind of blend those two things. And there were like, the big Tony Robbins stuff, also like smaller masterminds and retreats, but nothing that's a conference that blends these two things. And so I was talking to a friend about it, and I was like, here's what I'm thinking. And she's like, if you need any help with this, like, I'm your gal. And so here we are. We started this new business, and our first conference will be in September. But yeah, it will be all about integrating these things. Maybe you want to learn about how to integrate astrology and human design when you're building a team, and how to put different personalities together to support your business in whatever way. And so I'm really excited about it, and I think it's much needed.
Yeah, for sure. And you are not lying. I literally did the same exact thing. And I realized very quickly that whatever there was either died after the pandemic and didn't come back yet, or is just like the huge big players where it's a very secured market of who and what is being shared there. So I absolutely, one, thank you, two, applaud you, because it's a huge undertaking. And one that I know you're absolutely going to kill. I can't wait to see what comes of that. September, I'm coming. I'll be there.
Yay!
But we will include. Do you have a website for that yet, or do you just want them to
the website? You? Well, it may or may not be by the time this episode airs, but there is an Instagram account at Soul Word Summit.
Okay, so we'll put that in the show notes as well. Maria, I ask all of my guests this final question.
Oh,
Oh, how do you make your life rich?
I make my life rich by, this is the first thing that came to mind, so I'm just going to say it.
I love it.
By taking each sip of whether it's coffee or tea or cacao, whatever I'm drinking in the morning, like that first sip is with eyes closed and just like a deep appreciation for the children scurrying around, my husband who's helping everyone get ready, and just like grounding into deep appreciation with that first sip. That makes me feel in like my robe, because my robe is a really important part of that.
Yeah.
That makes me feel, that makes my life feel rich.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I know exactly what you mean. That's so beautiful. It gave me goosebumps. Maria, thank you so much. This was amazing. Thank you for being brave and making the change. You have helped more people than you know. And this is just the beginning of you being on this path of just full charge and alignment with all of your legal expertise and your manifesting generator vibes. You're going to take over the world. And I'm so thankful to know you. And I can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for being such a cheerleader.
Oh, of course. You make it easy. It brings me joy. Talk soon.